Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Facebook Live. We've had a busy week this week, loads of Q&A sessions and some live streamed gigs to look forward to. Today, we are talking to our special guest, singer, songcrafter, multi-instrumentalist, and all-round folk legend, Steve Knightley. Welcome.
Legend, I'm a singer-songwriter.
Singer-songwriter. It's good to have you back again. Obviously, this time you're on your own. We spoke to you with Phil last time as part of
That's
the
right.
Show of Hands.
About a year ago, I think. Almost a year ago, wasn't it?
Was it really? And that
Before
went very
that.
well. The last concert that you did there was a spectacular kind of
Oh,
effect.
the cathedral was something else. Yeah, I'm really glad we have that in the can, really, for reference as to what we can do on the big stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And also amazing footage from Folkscape.live as well.
yeah.
Excellent
The
quality stuff.
production. It was a Hollywood level production that night.
That's what I've heard. We're talking about your new tour and
Yeah,
specifically advertising that you're doing the live stream gig with Folkscape Live on the 8th of March. That's this
yeah.
Saturday.
That's
Coming
right.
live from Elm Farm.
That's right. Yeah. I've got 25 dates. Most of them have sold out, which is very gratifying. So I'm hoping that people will tune in, though, because all the time you hear, how come you're not going to this place and this place or that part of the country? I'm not really traveling north of the border or into Wales this time. That's not out of choice. That's just the people that book you. People still think that you look at the map and choose where you want to go. It doesn't work like that.
It would
And
make
it's a
life a
new
lot easier if you could.
Yeah, it is. It's a different show as well. I've got as well as the Winter Yards material. I've got a new Dylan Karthy, not a tribute album, but a sort of acknowledgement to how influential those guys were to play. So I'm playing some of those songs every night as well.
So for the people at home, we'd love you to ask questions. You can submit them right now at Folkscape.live, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. Please go and buy your ticket for the live stream. So that's Saturday, the 8th of March. And you can also, if you've got a subscription, you can keep watching
So
that
I'm playing
for a
some of
whole
those songs
year
every night as
afterwards.
well.
You can keep watching it over and over again, should you choose to. So we'll start with the first question. Steve, after all those years with Show of Hands, what's been the most surprising part of stepping out on your own for this tour?
Well, what I've noticed, actually, I noticed on the last tour was how much how much more money I make.
Always a bonus.
No, it's I've always been doing solo tours, but they've always been, if you like, in addition to a Show of Hands schedule. So we may have a big spring tour, an autumn tour, a load of festivals, and it's been slotted in. To be out on my own, it's almost like I'm trying to create a new audience for myself. And we've always, obviously, for the Show of Hands crowd, we have to play some familiar songs. There's a certain texture that they're used to. But not being tied to that particular, shall I say, like an oral landscape, I can go down perhaps more the traditional singer-songwriter path. Maybe more songs, slightly more urban in their feel, more American influence, slightly more Springsteen and Dylan influence. So, yeah, it's given me a chance to explore some other avenues. A lot more fingerstyle guitar. A lot of people said they didn't realize I did some of the more complex things on the guitar because with Phil, I tend to just beef away at the big chunky chords, and he does all the decorations. But on my own, you're trying to fill up the sound a bit more. So that's been interesting. And so, yeah, really, it's been. I consider it like a new direction. Most of the time, I'm playing to a proportion of the Show of Hands audience, because you have to remember that if 500 people came to see us, I mean, say in Leeds, another 2,000 or 3,000 chose not to. So it's hard to get to that lot if I'm part of that original format, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But by going down the more singer-songwriter, people can say, well, look, you might not have really enjoyed Show of Hands, but this is something slightly different. So it's almost like beginning again. And it's a bit of a challenge, but I'm really, really, really enjoying it.
I was going to say, it does sound like it's probably really enjoyable, kind of getting out of you can get put into a box, can't you, when you've been performing so long?
Yeah, and
quite refreshing.
it's been a great box to be in, really, because you couldn't get a better instrumentalist than Phil, because what he added to my songs was amazing. So perhaps taking all those other textures out, there's more focus on the lyrics. That's another
Yeah.
thing people said. I like to tell stories. I always like to put the songs in context. And I'm always worried every night whether I've gone on a bit too much. But a lot of people came up and say that's what they like. They like the context and they see the song through the prism of my explanation. This is the chords, these are the ideas I had, and this is how it came out. And so I try and get that balance right if I can.
Yeah, the folk audience definitely love to hear like the stories behind things, and also
Absolutely.
I think you get a little taste of the person as well that's writing the songs. They get a little bit more info about you as well, which they tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and
Um,
I wrote a song called Poppy Day, which is a combination of the idea of county lines dealing, soldiers in Afghanistan and the First World War, and the poppy being the common theme. And if you just set that up with a brief explanation, people then find a way into the song.
mm,
I'm always torn because I do have some of my closest friends say, no, just sing the song. So what I tend to do is with the new songs, I set them up. But if it's Cousin Jack or Santiago, I just play it
yeah.
without any context. And actually, it was Tom Robinson gave me some really good advice at the Costa Festival a year ago. He said, look, Steve, sing your own songs as if they are standards, as if they are great songs that you've known for years. And I knew exactly what he meant.
Mm,
They didn't need setting up. Maybe this is a bit of conceit here, but songs like Cousin Jack have been known for so long
yes.
that you just play them and there's always a little ripple,
Yeah, like opening chords, and people are like, oh, it's
yeah,
this one.
yeah,
I've been there and felt that. I can hear it from audiences when that happens.
yeah.
So another question, Tom Willis would like to know, after so many years of touring, do you still get nervous before going on stage?
I don't get no. I've never had stage fright in that
Yeah.
sense. I've never had that pit in the stomach. I get more nervous if I'm about to approach an Exeter Chiefs rugby player and chat. Isn't that stupid? Isn't that stupid? My people that I admire, and I'm sort of, excuse me, can I? It's like, but the actual performance, I'm not apprehensive. If I know I'm in safe hands from the sound point of view, if the sound check has gone well, my tick box, if you like, are there people coming to see me? You worry about that. It's quite nice at a festival when you're confronted with people that know nothing about you, which is obviously a bit rarer here, but overseas, so you get that sort of apprehension and excitement. But I don't get the sort of pit in the stomach, nervousness, terror that I know that I've seen some friends and also some floor singers and support artists. You just think, why are they putting themselves through this?
Why would you do that self if you're touring as well, that must be so stressful, getting that worried before you go on stage.
And the other thing, of course, you don't want to risk everything becoming routined and complacent, so every now and then it's good to take yourself out of the comfort zone. Nervous for a new song, are you going to remember the words? Because, you need some sort of way of recapturing the lyrics or whatever. So, but that actual dread that some people get, like I used to be very phobic about the dentist. I mean, I've got a great guy now that's gone.
Yeah.
But that sort of dread that you've got this date in the diary approaching, but I've never had that.
No. We've got a new question been submitted. Catherine Sibley. Out of the many great songs you've written, Steve, which is the one you're most proud of?
The one I finished yesterday.
And would that always be the answer to that question?
Yeah, I think in order to write a song, you have to think it's possibly the best thing ever. But there's also a dread it could be the worst. You don't really know for a while. I can only really go on what I see reflected back from the audience.
I was just going to say, how do you tell which ones are the great ones and which ones?
Songs like The Dive, people come up continually, and that's not an obvious song about a father and son and family and support. So I can look back at them and think that was well written, that was well constructed. Because I've always seen myself as a craftsman rather than an artist. I don't really like that label. Often it's an excuse for bad behavior and being late. Oh, you've got an artistic temperament. I've never bought into that. I think you can look back at a body of work and someone's life say like Martin Karthy, and say that was an artist.
Mm.
That's uncompromising commitment to a certain way of playing and being. But this idea of, hey, I'm an artist, I need my space. I don't know why I'm doing that in an American accent, but you know the mindset I talk about.
Absolutely.
So I can look back and think that was well crafted, that was well written, and that stood the test of time.
Mm.
And that what I found on the last tour, in the middle of a song, I'd realized that a certain theme in the song suddenly was current again, and suddenly was topical again. So
Which
I'm
is a
very
very
proud.
folky thing.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the new song Transactions. I think that was well crafted. But whether it's one of the top 5 or 6, the audience will be the judge of that, I think.
How do you decide, because when you've got favourite songs that you love performing or that you're really proud of, how do you decide whether to include them in a set list, whether you do them every single gig that you do, or do you sometimes choose to, not do them?
I tend to look at them as types of songs. There's
Yeah,
like I call them like the shouty songs, like AIG and Roots
yeah.
and Country Life. And then I've got the ballads or the storytellings, which are often in 3/4 time.
Mm,
So I tend to go for an arc during a set, start off with something familiar, then maybe something new. And that's something I learned from Ralph, actually, Ralph McTell in the early days.
mm,
That first song, people are just taking stock of you and the sound and the environment. And okay, are we in safe hands tonight? And then, so it's almost not like a throwaway song, but you need that one that you're utterly familiar with, the
mm,
sound beds in, and then you can maybe explore. So you try and build up to the middle of the set, down a bit, and then up again.
yeah,
So you try and fit in songs that follow that arc.
mm,
What I'm doing on this tour, I'm doing a handful of Show of Hands Die Hard songs. I'm
yeah.
doing stuff from Winter Yards. I'm doing stuff from the new Dylan Karthy album, and so I'll just change those particular songs. It may be Santiago one night, it may be Cousin Jack the next, but it'll be a familiar song for the audience. So yeah, so that in a way, there's like a space, a pre-committed space that I just slot the particular song into.
Mm. A question here from Laura Price. Do you have any pre-show rituals or superstitions before you go on stage?
One thing I learned again from Ralph was always get changed and wash your face. Even if you get changed into your scruffy clothes, I don't buy into this idea that you just walk off the street and onto stage.
I agree.
I think that for the history of entertainment, the performer has always set themselves slightly aside. Even if you look unemployable, whatever your particular identity is, I like to get changed, really. It might be just the usual black shirt or whatever, but there's something psychological about going through that barrier. And one of my favorite quotes of all time, I love this quote, I think it's Sammy Davis Jr. He was about to do a show and they couldn't find his tuxedo. They couldn't find his suit. And he was going, I can't. Yeah, no. And they say, Sammy, you look great. He said, listen, man, the suit knows the words. And that's so insightful, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so insightful that I just think that just to go through that little psychological ritual of just, blah, 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 da, da, da. It doesn't have to be smart and clean shaven, but whatever your persona is, become that. And then when you're on the stage, through that persona, become yourself again. And so that's my sort of psychological ritual. I obviously do a little vocal warm up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I smoke a lot of methamphetamine and get absolutely out my.
Well, that does explain a lot.
No, I don't tend to drink. I'll have a little drink in the interval now.
Yeah.
I used to have a glass of wine before and in the interval and at the end. And no, I might have a little tiny nip of brandy in the interval or something like that.
Sounds like a good gig ritual. Matt Harris says he was there last night. Amazing gig, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Have you ever been tempted in writing a technique skills book to go alongside your songbooks to help developing musicians learn the craft?
That's a very interesting thought, actually. I've done some workshops. I've not done the songwriting workshops, but I've done workshops for people that maybe do open mics and floor spots just to get them to brush up their performance technique. Just, not to play endless chords without any decoration or whatever. So to make, and I think I made some videos online during lockdown, nail that floor spot, but to actually turn it into a book, I've been Billy Bragg said the same thing to me, and so did Richard Dargent. He said, "Listen, mate, you sell a load of books, just road stories, just your anecdotes." But yeah, that might be an idea actually. That's a good thought. So I thank them for that. I might put that to one side.
That's it. Yeah, it's a good point, because I think people are really, they're not just interested in doing it for themselves. I think it does also give insight into you and your process. And we've got a few questions actually about your writing process. I'll just find some on my thing. What's your writing process like? Do you start with a lyric, a melody, or just a feeling? Says Josh Taylor.
This is something that I talk about every night, really. Traditionally, I've gone through the idea of the song first. It's like, are we all right? Is a question, isn't it? Are we all right? AIG, there's a, if you like a protest song about the corporate greed or whatever. But what's happened with the new record, I've had all these chord sequences lying around, little phrases on the guitar or the tenor guitar that haven't had a home. There's a mood in them. There's a certain texture in them, or a certain ambience, and I tend to record those. And then when I drive along, I just have them in the background. And then you almost surprise yourself with the direction of the chords, and little ideas for melody lines occur, as you hum along to it. And then it's a question of finding a theme. I mean, for Transactions, I had this chord sequence for a long time, and then 3 verses. The idea of population decline, gender, and also the post office inquiry. Not an obvious theme for a folk song, but it just works, the atmosphere. So chord sequence first now, the idea of the song, and then it really is a question of sitting down and doing an essay, doing your homework. But the moment you dry up, walk away from it, come back to it again the next day, surprise yourself with either how bad or how good it is, and then play it to family and friends, as long as they're generous of spirit. My wife, Claire, can be terrible. She goes, "Oh, boring. In the background, she goes, time and tides, clocks and seasides, roots and branches, blah, blah, blah."
So
she's a good critic. She said, "They're Maids in the Glen, Darcy on horseback. That's what they want."
Amazing. All constructive criticism.
No, I'm quite robust at that stage of the game, but I've got some friends who could be devastated by their early offerings being that doesn't work,
And do you ever just completely ignore them because you think, no, I've nailed
you have
it.
to.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
You have to ignore them. If you have an instinct for something, you have to follow it. I've learned that literally in the last 2 years. I didn't realize the science behind gut instinct. It's not just irrational reactions. There's something in your very fiber that's giving you information, all the received memories and all of the impressions you've got. And 80% of the time, they say, if you follow your gut instinct, it turns out to be correct. So if you have an instinct that a song works and everyone's going, no, follow it, and after you maybe have played it a dozen times, they could have been right, but the chances are that you were right all the time.
That gut instinct is based on lived experience, isn't it? And when your experience is, you've got so much of it.
That's right. And they are finding there is a science behind it in the bugs in your stomach and in every little mitochondria or whatever it is in your brain. Something is telling you. So how many times you have an instinct about someone and you overcome it and you think, oh God, I wish I wasn't involved with that person. I wish I'd never done business with them or whatever.
Yeah, and it's always can trace it back to that moment where you thought, "Is this a good idea?"
And you're encouraged. You're encouraged to think, no, you're being irrational. You're just going on first impressions, but they are worth listening to.
Absolutely. So I've got another question here from Lucy Bennett. Your lyrics have always been deeply storytelling. Where do you find your inspiration for the new songs these days?
Again, stories. My mantra is, what do you know, what do you love, what do you see? If you try and stick to that, so that's, I don't know where they come from really. I was told I had a poetic sensibility a long time ago by someone who I think knew what they were talking about, and I think I'm able to find a theme and give it a hinterland, a poetic hinterland, like The Dive. Just about a father and son fishing together is about a bigger thing than itself. It's about family and so forth. So So that's a nice rush when you realize you're connecting to something that's beyond those particular lyrics. It's just something I try and do. As I say, Dylan, Martin Karthy, and Ted Hughes just created me when I was 16 and 15. And if I can bring anything of those that sensibility to the songs, then I think I would have done well. But they just can't. But it is a question of hard work. It really is a question of. Tom Robinson says, just chuck stuff down on the page. Just write and write and write and write. Half of it will be rubbish, more of it will be rubbish, but come back to it and discover it and look at you know what? That lyric goes with that one I did the other day. And that little tune that I've going, you need a lot of ingredients in the kitchen. And then you literally have to go in there and start cooking. That's the way I look at it.
Do you ever go back and look at things, you know, have you got sort of a file of verses or half-written songs or riffs or anything do you refer back to? Yeah,
loads and loads. I have a whole file of stuff like that, and some of it was never any good, and some of it was like, wow, I've been waiting. That will work really well with this thing. It's like, you know, you can put the chili flakes with that particular dish, and then yeah. So, but you need to have those things in the larder. So have all those ideas stored away, and don't reject them. Just put them down, either in notes or in music form.
Yeah, like a little library. We've got a question from Robert Webb here. It says, will the last show that was live and extra be extended, and how can we watch on Folkscape when the year is up? That's interesting, because you've got your hands on TV.
Yeah, I've got hands on TV. I can go hands on TV, but I don't know if the demand is there. I mean, we haven't really. I think there's an idea. I need to talk to David about this with the year's anniversary, which will be in May. Maybe we should do a little push on it and tell people about it. Edit some little clips and put them up. And yeah, it's obviously available at the moment. That was the original arrangement for a year, but it would be good to give it a new lease of life, because it was a spectacular night. It really was really quite something, with the choir, with Miranda, and with all the guests. And yeah,
it's quite a surprise to hear that it is nearly a whole year since you did that. So, and how many? So you've already done a tour in autumn. Was that for the Winter Yards album?
Yeah, well, I got a new agency. Vicky is still handling Phil's career and Track Dogs, but I got approached by Midnight Mango and said, look, we have an idea how we can possibly shape your direction. If you do what we say, in a way, we'll try and do the smaller venues, sell them up, but maybe put together a lineup for later on in the year. So that's another possibly something I'm looking very closely at. But if you tell us you want 10 gigs a month in, month out, we can't really give it a direction. So Matt and Sam at Midnight Mango have sort of given me a template to work to, and I'm just going to do as I'm told.
Brilliant. Well, you know, they're experts, and you had quite a lot of success with the tour in November, didn't you? It went really well.
Well, my first ever trips to Scotland and to Ireland, and I enjoyed it. I had about 80 people. It wasn't huge audiences, but it was a good intro. And again, I'm not sure whether in Ireland they knew whether I'd be a sort of slightly pompous English singer-songwriter, but my grandmothers were Irish, and I played that Celtic card, obviously. and I made sure the Galway Farmer was played. Although one night, a guy said, it's good to hear the old songs. I said, I wrote that one. No, you never did. I did. So they like the storytelling, and I think they like the humour. And so I'm been invited back again. So I'm looking forward to going back. North and south again.
Yeah. So just a little reminder for the people that are watching at home. We'd love it if you keep asking your questions. Submit them on Folkscape.live, and we'll ask all the questions that you put to us. And how was Scotland then? Because I know a lot of artists struggle to kind of get a foot in the door there, and they've got a really amazing circuit. So did you?
Well, it is a thriving scene. I think Show of Hands had quite a cool reputation north of the border, to be honest. We were quite well regarded, the production values and what we've done over the years. And so there's always been a lot of people up there who've said, again, how come you've chosen not to tour? And again, it's never been a choice. It's been, we did have a couple of shows booked, but ticket sales were very poor. This is just after the referendum, and so we just couldn't afford to go. But I went and I played a lovely show in Kinross and in Glasgow, and it looks like I'll be asked back again, maybe next year, this time next year.
Fab.
And yeah, so I look forward to that.
Simon says very emphatically, the demand is here. Could there please be a live CD, DVD of this spectacle of the last gig in Exeter? So, demand.
Well, that is absolutely. Again, that's something I need to talk to David about. I mean, if it's all about a question about knowing what numbers, because obviously to produce DVDs per unit in small numbers, there's economies of scale involved. There was a demand for a DVD. So many people stream now. It's very easy to forget that some people do like the hard copies, and I've noticed, and so has Phil, a bit of a resurgence in people buying CDs in the last 6 months. And it's almost like people are familiar with the streaming process. They know it supports the artist a bit more, and they want to do something to support you. They like the opportunity to meet you after the show and have something signed. And the big blow was when car manufacturers stopped putting CD players in vehicles, which happened last year. That was a major blow, but it's almost like it's recovering a bit from there. And I sold a lot last night. I must admit, the opening gig was in Dorchester, and I did well on Winter Yards and on the Positively Folk Street, as I call the Dylan Karthy album.
Brilliant. Well, do you want to have a bit of a chat about that? Because I understand it started off as that you were going to sort of include one song on the set list every night, and you had a short list of songs, and then it went so well, the thought of it kind of...
Yeah, well, it's in answer to this question about, how did this all begin? And when I was 14 or 15, I heard Freewheeling Bob Dylan album. I could play a little bit of guitar, but when I mastered that fingerstyle, that finger picking, and that sheer presence of Bob Dylan, like your big brother whispering in your ear that you got to get out of Exmouth, baby. It was so transformative. Once I'd cracked that fingerstyle with my friends, Paul Downs and some other friends, and then I read on the back that he got some tunes and influences from Martin Karthy, an English singer-songwriter, an English traditional folk singer. So it was in that summer I went over to Sidmouth, which is only 8 miles away from where I live. I missed the bus home, slept in the gardens, Connaught Gardens, and I saw Karthy Swarbrick, and I connected what Martin was doing to the Dylan album. And so thereafter, for 4 years, nothing but Dylan and traditional folk songs all mixed up together. And so I thought, if I'm going to talk about this on this tour, I ought to play a Dylan song and a Karthy traditional song arrangement. And then I thought, well, hang on, if it's just voice and guitar, why don't I just record them? So I went to Julian Holroyd's studio, and we captured them. And it's had a really good reaction. Both the idea of it and the early sales have been fantastic.
That's
People
great.
from Ernie and Maria at Elm Farm, and I sold a load last night. And yeah, who knows? Maybe talking about broadening your audience, if you can connect to that hinterland of Dylan fans, maybe that's a way of people saying, well, this guy, he was in Show of Hands, but let's go and check it out because he's doing some Dylan stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to attract some newer people in because, I'm assuming, if you got it on Spotify, are you streaming it on there?
Yeah, it will be on Spotify soon. It's only available a week. It's going to be streamed, and through Show of Hands, people are going to be able to download it soon. Through our
there's
Show.
So many interpretations of Dylan songs specifically. Yeah. People are going to hear that on playlists. It will surely bring some new people in, I'm sure.
Well, there are some crazed Dylan fans out there. There are some real diehards who know every single note. But hope to connect with that gang.
How did you decide which songs to do for the album?
They were just the ones I knew. Yeah. Just the ones I learned. Girl from the North Country, Senor, Positively 4th Street, which the best put down line ever in the world. I wish you were me, and you know what a drag it is to see you. I just love that singing that line. And then I'd always known Bruton Town, 7 Yellow Gypsies. I'd always known Broomfield Hill. And so they were the songs that I'd learned and I've known for years. And so I just did one of each, and they are in Dylan Karthy all the way through the album. and it seems to work as an idea.
Was it
Maybe
was
who knows? Maybe I'll be able to tour the album one day. Just do those songs. Who knows?
absolutely. Was there a
Then I'll bring
conscious
the
effort
then
to
I'll bring sorry.
interpret?
Then I'll bring the band on, and everyone can shout Judas at me.
We can arrange it.
I don't believe you, man. You're a liar.
Did you choose to reinterpret the songs, or was it just it just came out organically? How did you come up with your interpretation?
Well, they're always. I mean, they are versions of what Broomfield Hill. I tried to approximate Martin's original arrangement of that, but obviously I can't replicate that guitar playing. So, but on the whole, it tends to be his chordal arrangements. Polly on the Shore, for example. I've tried to follow the structure of what I've learned, and I put him down as the arranger of all the songs as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is only the right thing to do. Trad arranged Karthy, and obviously Dylan's stuff is published. So no, they're just the instruments. I mean, the way I play them is obviously different to the way Dylan plays them. But I've tried to be true to the spirit of the songs that I learned and the songs that influenced me so much.
I do, because I've had a listen to it, and I do really. It feels very signature you sounding. It's not, people wouldn't listen to it and go, "Oh, you're just recreating."
Well, as I say, my material comes from that. That's where I come from. The idea of storytelling and that poetic Dylan sensibility. If I can capture that, then it won't be a surprise to anybody, because it's not like I'm singing the best of ABBA.
That could be another album opportunity there.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, there you go.
And the outfits, obviously, that would be.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
We've got a question. Phil and Joe said, we were at the gig last night, and me and the wife really like the new material. Am I right in thinking you are releasing Winter Yards on vinyl?
Yes, I am. That's a good reminder. That's being done at the moment. That should be available in about 2 weeks. I was talking to Martin Simpson about that, and Martin said, "Yeah, look, vinyl. There is an audience for vinyl. It's not huge, but but they are enthusiastic, and so yeah, I've got some vinyl coming out in. As I say, it wasn't in time for the start of the tour, but I reckon by this time, in 2 weeks' time, I'll have the vinyl. Yeah."
Fab. So possibly be available at your gigs on the latter half of the tour and on your website.
Well, I'm trying to figure out a way of mail ordering vinyl. I need to find a structure. It's not as straightforward as CDs, because you need a certain sort of packaging. But having made 500 or 600 or whatever, then obviously I'm going to have to sell them somehow. And so, yeah, we'll watch this space about that.
Fabulous. Chris Armstrong asked, because of you and your Grow Your Own gig tour some years ago, Swanton Nova's Village Hall has become an established venue. Was that just us, or did that tour inspire other venues as well?
I'd say we have put about 30 venues on stream through that original structure of not going for guaranteed fees, by saying to people, look, if you have a group of friends, put on a gig in a village hall or a community centre or whatever. And once people learn how easy it was to do, if you follow that structure, the only problem would be they suddenly get approached by agencies wanting fixed fees, hotel rooms, PAs, and a few people got stung by that. All of a sudden, the band will be turning up. You know, where's the 8 monitors? Where's the DIs? Blah blah blah. So as long as people followed that structure and they realized, you know what, and typically it would be a group of friends who like acoustic and folk music, and now you see them all with the T-shirts on, putting on gigs. And I can think of, Steve Nunn, I think of Jerry Page, I can think of Richard Patterson. I could think of a dozen people straight away who have provided performing environments for other people in the genre through Phil and I setting up that original structure. And very much that was Phil's idea. Bring a PA, bring some lights, set it all up yourself, take away all that from the organizers, and then all of a sudden there's nowhere you can't go. And so over the years, it's I think probably Phil deserves more credit than he gets for that, because that was, again, his idea. Mailing list, self-contained. He doesn't like to rely on people moving faders up and down with equipment he doesn't know about. And I think I can see the sense of that.
Yeah, and it assures that sort of quality across the board of all your gigs, doesn't it? Again, your production.
True. Although I do have to say, on the last tour of the art centres, the quality of the young sound engineers and the PA systems that are now in little theatre and art centre venues
Yeah.
is fantastic. So I'm very much talking about the more the folk club, village hall, community centre area of gigs, with what we're talking about. But within the professional venues, the quality is fantastic now, and I had a great time using the house engineers on that particular tour.
That is fabulous news, because there was certainly a time when you couldn't guarantee that the person in control of your sound would always deliver your things at the best in the best way. Yeah.
I'm afraid. We've had them all in here. I don't know why I do that in the northern accent, but that particular club, yeah. Well, you're just a folk singer, Just plug it in and we'll turn it up. But sorry, I'm caricaturing here, but I think you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do, yeah, and well, I'm maybe not saying anything else on that. So obviously, people at home, you can still ask your questions, Facebook.live, and because this is open to the public and anybody can ask a question, we can't stop certain people from getting through. And I've got a question here. Have you had a song in a movie? I heard you starred alongside Scarlett Johansson. What was that like? And that question is from Robbie K. Jones.
Robbie would know about that because he's in the film as well. We provided the wedding music for a film featuring Scarlett Johansson, and she was banging Robbie's cajon, believe it or not. He was flirting with her like crazy. She played a young English naval officer in a film directed by Kristin Scott Thomas. It hasn't been released. I wrote a song especially for the wedding, and Robbie will know exactly the way I had to try and get that song into the movie. It's actually on the Winter Yards. It's called The Mermaid.
Yeah.
The whole song is full of maritime themes, and it's about Kristin Scott Thomas's family background as the daughter of a naval officer, etc. So it was a lovely country scene, a lovely little marquee wedding scene, and everyone was bopping away to my song. And as I say, Scarlett Johansson and Sienna Miller, who is a bit of a party animal. It was great to be involved, but the film got a pre-release at Toronto, and I've yet to see it be released in mainstream. So that's 2 years ago now. And me and Phil, Ben Nichols and Robbie were the wedding band. And one day I hope.
So you never actually seen the movie?
Somebody has seen the movie because we have a friend who works on compliance and advertising. They have to appraise movies for I can't remember technically about it. They have to look at it through a certain perspective. I don't know whether product placement or whatever, but somebody said, I've just seen you and Phil in a movie playing to Scarlett Johansson, Sienna Miller and James Fleet and all the four weddings and the funeral type crowd. But as I say, one day, it would be lovely to be able to show you that because it was such fun.
That I'd love to see it, and it's quite a cast as well. It's pretty star-studded.
It was stellar. It was a stellar cast. It was Emily Beecham, and it was a stellar cast.
Right, I've got another question. Andy Eccleston, on the subject of Dylan covers, I've always loved your melding of Boots of Spanish Leather with Try. Where did you get the idea, and how does it work from a song structure point of view?
It just sort of does. I didn't do that version on the album because I wanted just to do Boots of Spanish Leather, but it was my daughter Evie about 8 years ago was a huge Pink fan, and I think Pink is fantastic. There are some of those pop stars, unlike some of some of them, Pink and Lady Gaga, they do it live. Although they're throwing themselves all over the place, they are singing live, they are playing live, and they're doing it. And I've always liked the video of Pink doing Try when she was obviously an ex-gymnast. She's being thrown all over the place. I recommend people watching it. And so I thought, okay, Evie was at Shrewsbury Festival, and I'm going to play a song. I'm going to learn it especially for her. And so I started playing the opening chords of Try. Everyone to know about you doing. And I started singing it. And when I'm sailing away, and I started doing Boots of Spanish Leather. Because I thought, okay, the folkies won't know Try. Evie won't know Boots of Spanish Leather. So why don't I mix them all together? And so, in a funny sort of way, when the guy is saying, "Look, is there something?" Well, the woman is saying, "Can I send you something? You know, I'm going away," and he's going, "Well, no, just bring your love back to me." And then, where there's a flame, there's going to be desire. It seemed to work really, and yeah, it's a good version. I might bring that version out of the locker later in the year.
Mm.
When as I say, I'm hoping to put together like a lineup, and we might have a go at that. And I love the way in Boots of Spanish Leather when I love the practicality of, well, if you're not coming home, send me some good shoes. You know, there's
I think
nothing
that's good
like a
advice.
pair of good shoes, is there? You know, I love that idea. You know, yeah, if you can't be bothered, you know, I want some proper Spanish boots. And on the album, when he says that some boots of Spanish leather, that's followed by the Seven Yellow Gypsies,
Hmm.
where the lady takes off her high-heeled shoes made of Spanish leather and joins the Gypsies. So there's a lovely
Yeah.
thematic tie-up between Boots of Spanish Leather and Seven Yellow Gypsies on the album.
I did have that moment when that was the next one on the track, and I thought,
Yeah, well
really
noticed.
cohesive.
Well
Yeah.
spotted. And also on the opening track, the girl from the North Country, and then there was a Lord in the North Country. On those two songs are linked in that theme as well.
That's a really interesting thing for people, actually, the way that you craft an album and the track list on that, because so many people listen to things on Spotify, they listen to one
Yeah,
track. Do
yeah.
you have that in mind every time you put an album together? Is that quite
Yeah, I'm
important?
I'm old-fashioned like that. I like to think of it as a story and a journey, and Phil and I have always been like that. But as you say, Pete, that's not the way. You know, people used to sit in a darkened, smoke-filled room and play the whole album, whether it was Yes or whether it was Jethro Tull,
Mm.
and the whole album was like a journey, wasn't it? And you only just got up to turn the record over. So that's in my DNA really when it comes to music.
Yeah. We've got another question from Robert Webb again. He says, "Me again. Would you ever do any Donovan songs?"
Yeah, I love Gift from a Flower to a Garden.
Mm.
That was almost as influential as some of the Dylan stuff. Um, Dear Wind That Shakes the Barley Free. The acoustic album on that, I think, is fantastic. And so I do that one, Widow on the Shore.
Mm.
So I might well do a Donovan song. We ended up doing Hurdy Gurdy Man with him at a publishing festival years
Oh
ago.
wow.
And again, he's one of those. He's a bit of a trooper, you know. He carrying on, and slightly eccentric. But yeah, we had a good day hanging out with him, and yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that because there are some fantastic songs on that album.
Mm. Yep, we'll watch this space. More
Yeah,
Donovan
please
songs
do.
on the way.
Yeah,
Just since you sort of mentioned earlier about a possible lineup of a band, I was going to
yeah.
ask you about your future plans, so things after this tour. What sort of things are you up to in summer?
Well, I've got a handful of festivals on my own, but this may be jumping the gun.
Okay.
I'm going to jump the gun. I've started doing some work with some incredible musicians that I've known for a while. I've known one of them for a long time, David Delar, and I've seen Evan Carson play. And I met John Parker, double bass, recently, and we got together and we made some noise, and it was. I cannot tell you how exciting it was.
Yeah.
The songs that we made, and the way that they took my songs and added what they do without any play this, play that, or this is how it goes. And so that we are really hoping to put together something concrete with that particular lineup. So watch this space.
Right. So there's nothing confirmed yet, but you're hoping to do some
Well,
gigs
there
then.
there are dates being penciled in. There are dates in the diary, but we're not going to release those until the end of this tour, with a bit of a fanfare. But so far, it's looking good.
That's fab. So another watch this space, have a look at the
Watch
website,
this
and
space.
yeah, look at the
I mean,
new record.
I make a certain sound on the Winter Yards, the way that Mark Tucker produced it, and these guys can realise that sound.
Mm.
And it's not folk rock; it's something more, maybe more down the Peter Gabriel route, I think. But people can be the judge of that as and when it happens.
Yeah. Well, it's something to look forward to. Fabulous.
Hmm.
Oh, Charlotte Dean has a question. Folk music has always been a voice for the people. Do you think it still carries the same weight in today's world?
Gosh, there's a question.
It is a bit, no.
You often get asked whether music changes anything.
Mm.
Did maybe during the civil rights movement, Vietnam. I think it can mark moments in time. Whether it changes people's um, opinions or not, but there's never been so much to sing about,
Mm.
really. But I don't know really, because one thing that struck me when I saw the Dylan film was that the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I mean, I studied that when I did American politics, and people thought it was coming. People thought that it was about to happen, Armageddon. So maybe we've always had those fears. Maybe the fears of being called up in the First World War, maybe in an age when there wasn't a health service, maybe when the climate would destroy your economy or your farm or whatever. Maybe people have always had these terrible fears, and folk music traditionally has been the voice of the people, isn't it? It's from the field and the farm and the factory and the front line. So I think if you just keep singing about the age you're in, it's in that context of all those other songs that have been about the times, that you're in. Um, so yeah, I think it's. I might be losing the thread of the answer, but I know exactly what she means, and I think it's important that people just keep channeling the zeitgeist. They keep singing about the times they're in, without being too preachy about it. There's always a danger that you can be singing to an audience who already agree with you about something they already agree with, So it's you've got to find that balance right. But the song Transactions, when I get onto the verse about the post office, I can feel a certain atmosphere in the room.
I bet.
That is captured. So if people can do that with a song, then you're capturing something that's current.
Mm. Jackie Green says, "Hi Steve, does
Oh
the
yeah.
current apparent rise of fascism inspire you to write another brilliant song? Sure, I'm not the only one to hope that you do."
Mm. Well, there's a question begged in that. What have we got rising? Some people call it patriotic nationalism. Some people call it fascism. Other people call it communism. Everybody is taking sides at the moment, and you have to try and tread between the gaps, really, with these songs. Otherwise, you never get to talk to people that don't agree with you. And I very much resent this current fashion for. I used to argue with my dad about the miners' strike because he was quite conservative and anti-union at the time
Right.
as a businessman. I didn't then dislike him because of his views.
Mm.
There seems to be a current phase where if someone has a certain view about something, you're a dislikable person because of it. And if you go down that mindset, there's no conversation, there's no debate, there's no opportunity to change people's minds. So I think in songs, you have to be very careful. You can express your anger and your outrage, but you can't stop. You can't really start pointing at people and saying it's all because of you being a bad person, So
Yeah.
it's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. But I will be writing songs about what I think is happening, And but as I say, it's best to put that in context of things that have happened before.
Mm.
If you're talking about warfare, try and put it, go back to Napoleon, go back to the First World War and the Second World War, and try and draw those threads together in a poetic way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll just lose an audience as well as, gaining perhaps a few.
Yeah, I think people don't want to feel like you're trying to convert them, but if it's social commentary, then there's a lot better reaction because they can maybe see a bit of themselves in what you're saying, even if you don't agree with them. And I think that's a
Yeah.
really
Well, I've done a
good way
couple
on
of shows.
songwriting.
I've done 3 shows with Reg Muros, and his Stolen from God show is fantastic, really.
Mm.
And we all know about slavery. We all know. Perhaps not everybody knows about the part we had in ending it, but Reg refers to that. And he's not telling people what to think. He's just presenting stories. And once you hear the stories, God, okay, fine, So he's not preaching, and it was
Mm-hmm.
it was a real pleasure to be a part of that show. And I think he offers a template as a way of talking about an issue without preaching about it and making people think and be well informed. So hats off to him.
Yeah, it's just some of the facts, stating some of those facts.
Some of the facts, simply the
Makes you
facts.
breath away, doesn't it? It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good show. If he's doing the rounds this summer, get to see him at a festival, Reg Moros, and that's with Cohen, and he's got a
This is
too, yeah, on various
yeah.
instruments.
And various people have narrated it. I know that Matt Bannister's narrated it. I've done some narrating for it, but it's it's a great show.
Will you be doing any more narration with him, do you think, or is that
If
something?
he asks me and I'm free, I'd love
Yeah.
to. Yeah, he knows that.
Brilliant. So we've got about 10 minutes left. If you're quick, you can sneak a question in or two on Facebook.live. We've got one. This is more of a question for Folkscape. So happy to be able to see Steve Shaw on Folkscape.live. Would love to see Phil and Miranda as well. Any chance of this? So that's one for the Folkscape bosses.
Without doubt, I'm sure Phil would be up for that. So I shall remind him for he's got a great trio with Phil, either with Sean and on percussion and Miranda. So more bluesy stuff. Yeah.
We'll talk to
And occasionally it's Lucy as well, Lucy on percussion. So he's got a little trio there, and because he very much was influenced by the Davy Graham blues tradition, and this gives him an opportunity to explore that side of his music as well.
Yeah, that would be a fabulous concert. Okay, I did just spot a question. You've written so many powerful songs over the years. Is there one that stands out as your personal favourite?
I was sort of asked that before, but maybe I'm most proud of Transactions at the moment.
Yeah,
because I can feel in the room a certain atmosphere when I go from verse to verse, and so at the moment that's one of my most recent songs, and I enjoy playing that live. And I think I think I got it right, the general tone on that one. But I've just started playing a new song called Things You Can Do This in a Folk Song, and I don't know if you might have heard the original versions. I collected from all my traditional music friends the worst things that have ever happened in folk songs, including Lucy Wan, Matty Groves, and I've turned it into a song. I list all these terrible things, and the chorus is "It's okay if it's a folk song." It's the most un-PC shall we say, controversial song, but they are all genuine things that have happened in folk songs. And by everybody singing along, they're complicit in them as well. So I go wailing, wenching, I go hunting, I go ravishing maids on the mountainside, I get off with Lord Barnard's wife. I do all these things that don't even go near Lucy Wan. And they're all things in a folk song. So I played that for the first time properly last night, and I shall be doing that tonight as well.
Oh,
I'll be doing it on Saturday as well.
Yeah. Oh, fab. So that's something to look forward to on the live stream concert.
I'll just give you in a folk song you can hunt the fox, Roger the lasses, and catch the pox. Leave Lucy alone on the docks, and all. It's okay. It's a folk song. What else have I got? Shoot the swan and the king's wild deer. Drown yourself in ale and beer. Put your finger in your best friend's ear, or even in your sister if the coast is clear. Anyway, it's really bad stuff, and these are all things in folk songs that you really shouldn't encourage people to do.
Yeah, genuine happenings in folk songs are not necessarily what you want from your life as a rule.
Yeah, exactly.
This one question. So there's been a few questions like this. What has been the most surprising or unexpected or funniest moment on the tour so far? Now, you've only done a few days, haven't you?
Well, there was a moment last night when all the house lights came on. I was just singing Bruton Town. And I don't know if you know Bruton Town, but the idea of the servant who falls in love with the rich lord's daughter, and her brothers take him hunting and they slaughter him in the woods. And she dreams she sees his body lying in blood, and she goes and she finds it. In the middle of that song, all of the house lights came on. The audience was suddenly like in the Starship Enterprise. I went completely dark, and it totally lost the mood. I had to shout out to Jamie. Jamie, he had to find the little trackpad to turn the lights back on, and basically I had to start again from scratch. so it rather blew the atmosphere on that song. But I'll be collecting anecdotes throughout the tour. I was on tour with my young son Billy last year, and he was selling all my CDs, and he was only 18 at the time. And after a couple of gigs, he said, "Can you just stop saying that to the audience?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Well, it's driving me mad every night." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And what I was saying before the interval was that my son Billy is selling the CDs for me, and he's on his gap year, and he's hoping to travel. But how far he gets sort of depends on how many CDs he sells. And I said, so far he's only got as far as Salisbury. And I thought it was quite a good way of mentioning the merchandise, involving him. But of course, it was every night. It was like, "Oh, how Billy? Oh, yeah, where are you hoping to go? And what are you doing?" And so he was getting drawn into these endless conversations. And so I had to stop doing that. So
People keep talking to me.
keep talking to me, it's like, "What's it like touring with your dad? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, did you like?" And yeah, so he wasn't doing enough sales and too much gossip.
So a recap, you're on tour and you've got, did you say 25 dates over the
Yeah.
whole of March?
Started last night. Yeah, the dates are all there. They all are. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, and they're also on your website, which is
They're
what's
on
the
the
address?
website. Yeah, steveknightley.co.uk or steveknightley.com. I think no, don't Google that. If you Google steveknightley.co.uk, you'll get to a porn site.
Not again.
Yeah, I
But
don't know how
is it
that's
you on the
happened.
porn site?
No, it's not. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, it's steveknightley.com you got to go to. It might not have built, people even now are going tap, 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 tap. Yeah, got to be careful with that.
There'll be a lot of traffic to that website now, just for
Yeah.
curiosity. Yeah, so we're Folkscape.live. They're going to be filming your gig at Elm Farm, and that's
Yeah.
on Saturday, 8th of March. Do
Yeah.
get your tickets for that. Please support Steve on tour. You'll have your Positively Folk Street album there for sale, right?
Yeah, and winter yards and
And
tea
Winter.
towels. How rock and roll is that? I've
Yeah,
got tea
tea towels.
towels, and I'm giving away beer mats. Thank you to Avocet Exeter Brewery gave me some sponsored beer mats.
Brilliant.
For rock and roll all the time.
So will you be handing them out to people from the merch desk, or are you just going to be
Yeah, they
passing them
just
around the
help
venue?
themselves. Yeah, basically.
Excellent. And just to remind the people at home, we've got some other upcoming events. Friday the 7th, I spoke to Josiane Clark on Monday. So Josiane is doing her Songs from Sandy Denny live from Saltaire, the live room. So the tickets are available for that. That's on Friday. And we've also got coming up on the 17th of March, which is St Patrick's Day, the world famous Irish House Party. They'll be playing live from Dublin. And we'll hopefully have a Q&A session with them for you to watch at some point. So I think it just leaves me to say thank you so much, Steve, for talking to me today. And
Pleasure.
I hope the rest of your tour is brilliant and
Yeah.
Saturday goes really well.
Thanks, Alice.
And yeah, thanks ever so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Brilliant stuff.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.